Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Next we're looking at season 1 of the DC show, Supergirl.
Because it is our favorite season ever of the series.
Right.
By the time the spacecraft crashed, landed on Earth, Kal-El had grown up and become Superman. The series begins 11 years later when the now 24-year-old Kara is learning to embrace her powers and has adopted the superheroic alias Supergirl. And the first season, Kara is forced to reveal her powers and becomes the National City's protector and aired on CBS.
Yes, that is correct. And then after season 1 ended, it moved to CW. Before we get into that, be sure to like, subscribe, and click notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and all the Paws videos.
Now, I want to say before we even start all this, we always wondered, why is she separate and why was Gotham separate on CBS and Fox, respectively? And we always thought it would be fantastic if all of them moved to the CW. Well, Gotham didn't, and maybe it was a good thing it didn't, and Supergirl did. And we were just excited that she went to the network to be with the other superheroes. Yay! Problem is, when she was on CBS, the cinematography was beautiful and gorgeous, and the story had a whole different feel, and it was action-packed, and it reminded us a lot of the original Superman series with George Reeves in terms of the feel that you got and the vibe. And Melissa Benoist's portrayal of Supergirl, I loved when she would make the faces, when she really got into her action. I loved how she portrayed the role, because just like all the actors that have played Superman, there's this humbleness and innocence that came through in her character. We love that they had other characters that we love, but it left CBS.
Yes,
and then that being a good thing.
Yes, and then when it went to CW, everything went straight to Hades. So, yeah.
How could you get rid of Callista Flockhart as Cat?
Right.
She was one of the best things about the show in conjunction with Supergirl, and their relationship was great. And then you get rid of her. What the fudge were you thinking about?
And then replace her with another Perry White so they can do stereotypes. It's like, oh. So, yes, for season 1, we're only covering season 1 because it is our favorite season. Because from season 2 onward, it was a whole different show. We were not enjoying it. And we kind of dropped out about maybe season 3. After season 3 or 4.
We dropped out when they got to the arc with the guy who they started showing his backstory of how he was becoming a criminal.
Yeah, it was sort of like Amon. It was sort of like Amon from Legend of Korra, and he had this thing where people were against aliens, and it was this whole allegory to real life, and then it was really going off deep end. And that's when Supergirl's popularity really started to fall, because a lot of people were saying, why is this stuff in here? It started being all about social commentary and justice issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, it stopped being superhero, started being more about the real life issues. Like, it's supposed to be a superhero show. Some villains did have that, but that wasn't always the whole arc, because then it always applies it to real world and a message.
And we have to admit that in this current season that just ended, we have watched I think 3 episodes out of it.
Yeah, there was one where they had Mr. Mixaplex, where she kind of showed like different times when Supergirl could have told Lena and Luthor that she was Supergirl, and what was another one?
Also the one where
one part was part of the Crisis crossover, of course.
Yes.
And then on the third episode,
we saw actually 4. Our third one we watched was when
it was like the aftermath of Crisis, and they had these. When came
dad
back,
suddenly came back again,
right?
And we're like, how's he back again?
Right, and then it was when they had these other versions of Brainiac in one place, because
that's correct.
The Crisis wiped out all of the other versions of Earth, so they were stuck on their version.
And we have to say 3 out of those 4 episodes were interesting. We were glad we watched them. We just didn't recommit to picking up and going back to Netflix and picking up where we left off in 3, because again, season 1 to us is the best season. It was different than any other superhero show out there. I mean, it stood apart, and part of it was looking, as we were saying when you were watching, the beauty of the cinematography. The colors were so vibrant, And her suit was like, made a little differently as well.
Right. It looked like a Superman-esque show because the thing with Superman True Justice the American Way, if you think about Arrow and Flash, Arrow was dark. Mm-hmm. Flash was kind of sort of dark, but it was right. And then Supergirl was and it was fun, and you had the campy heroic thing like Superman, so that was the one, and they barely had anything where you couldn't show to your kids because they kept it clean, and it looked like it was a whole lot of fun.
Right. And we absolutely loved it, and we watched the first season more than once because we really loved it. We'll probably end up watching it again this summer.
Right.
Because it really was different and unique, and for me, I would say it showed you just how caliber a superhero show could be with all the other lineups on TV, how it stood out, and it made people who probably didn't even watch these type of shows like them. Because I remember we were seeing comments on Tumblr and on Twitter how people were watching this show and they had never watched a superhero type show before.
Right.
But just the beauty of the visuals and seeing the commercials made them want to tune in and see, hey, maybe this is something that would interest me.
Right. And you think about the musical, always really fun. It was energetic. While Arrow had the dark Batman thing, Flash had the like his own little thing. It was slightly heroic, but Supergirl was always the fun, heroic, here he comes to save the day.
Yes.
And it was always a fun part of it. And it was like almost like watching Sky High in a way, where it was just really, really fun. You can't wait for it to be Supergirl and all the fun. And here's the villains. You gotta fight them. It brought out what you would read in a comic book before all the comics became violent.
Now, one thing that stood out for me before we get to giving
the actor shout out,
yes, is that Melissa Benoist is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And in that first season, she would twist. And when she screamed, and she would just get all into her character. And again, the way she portrayed it is one of the first times that I loved the star of the show. And I remember Rascal was so stunned because she says, I usually either go for the serious characters and so forth. But in this one, I actually loved Supergirl. I said, I can't believe it. She's my favorite character. I really love this character. And for season 1, Supergirl was it for me out of that show, and I absolutely love the character. And again, when they took it to CW, the show became something different. She became something different. And another thing that we have to mention is that in the first series, Jimmy was set to be her love interest, and by the last season finale, you were expecting that first episode, woo, that she's gonna be with Jimmy, and then she gives him this crap excuse as to why she couldn't be with him, which was
that she couldn't have it all,
and she had to concentrate on that, and she being a superhero and not her love story, and then she ends up with Monel, so you know it was a lie.
Right, so she goes be with an alien, really?
So exactly. So what was the reason that CW decided that Supergirl or Kara shouldn't be shipped with Jimmy?
It was so.
What was the truth? And like you said, could it be because he wasn't an alien, because he didn't have superpowers, because of any other things? Why did you change it? That was a really big letdown because they had built it up so beautifully, and it wasn't forced. In that first season, it wasn't forced. You could just see it happening, and it was like, yay! And then you get to season 2, and then you get to the first episode, she dumps him, and then it not only did it change her character, but the writing changed Jimmy's character, and he was no longer the same character.
Right.
And Wynn was no longer the same character. And then besides Kat, other characters completely disappeared with no explanation.
Right.
They just dissolved into the atmosphere.
They just said, oh, they went so and so. They went out of time.
In some cases, they didn't even mention the character. It was like they never ever existed.
Right.
So
I was like, what's going on? And then, like I said, then when they had the villains and stuff, they weren't even that interesting. Then they had one where it was like, there was your biggest sign, if you were still into Supergirl, even with the change of season 2, your biggest sign of it being going downhill was when they had the Flash crossover with Supergirl, and it was a musical special.
Which
only for the
a lot of people really liked.
Only for the fans of Glee, and that was pretty much it. Cause
I think that was a good thing to give them a shout out to the show they originally came from.
I was like, and Like, why does Music Meister care about the ships? Why the hell does he care about who is being shipped with who? If the ships are being more important than the story, you need to stop watching the show.
Well, with that, we'll give a shout out to the series actors.
You're right.
As you mentioned, Melissa Benoist as Kara Danvers, and Shira Lee as Alex Danvers, and David Harewood as Martian Manhunter, or John Jones.
Right. Oh, they also had Carl Lumbly, who was the voice of Martian Manhunter in the original Justice League series. That was a great idea.
That was one of the best arcs in the series. While we were still watching, that was
right. And then they had Jeremy Jordan as Wynn, who you know is the voice of Varian.
Yes. Don't forget McCat Brooks as Jimmy Olsen or James Olsen. Katie McGrath from Merlin as Lena Luthor.
Right. And who else they have in here? Callista Flockhart as Cat Graham, who we mentioned, right?
Right. We've mentioned over and over and over.
Right.
Yes. And they had Nicole Maines, who played Nia Now, but she played that later in the season. So
and don't forget they also had Supergirl's mom, played by the original Supergirl,
and they had Linda Carter, Wonder Woman, playing the president.
Right. And Dean Cain, who kind of sort of played the dad, even though you didn't see him that much. He was the dad on here as well.
Helen Slater. And Helen Slater, for those of you who may not know, fun fact, portrayed Supergirl in the first theatrical movie for her. Mm-hmm. So those things were wonderful. Those things that were made the series stand out. Absolutely positively. Seeing so many people who portray superheroes in other television shows and movies and mediums being on this show, that was one of the great things that I have to say really still happened in the show. And you had some more you had later on in the series, but just talking about season 1, all of these things together made this series this season fantastic, and the best and the most favorite. And I know they'll never go back to the format and what it was on CBS. And I have to say, CBS failed Supergirl because I guess how she was lined up really wasn't conducive to bringing in more viewers. And we did know that moving her to CW would gain more viewers and put her along with the other superhero series. But I have to say, CBS, thank you for giving a wonderfully brilliant first season to the show, because it's so fantastic, so spectacular, so amazing that to this day we love it and we still watch it over and over. So great job on the show itself, but not so great a job in its promotion, presentation,
Yeah, pretty much.
And lineup.
Right. So there were some great parts of the show even after the move to CW, but season 1 will always be our favorite season. Absolutely. And there's a whole lot of episodes to watch for it as well.
And we do know a lot of you are still tuning in and still watching it, and we like for you to let us know what makes you stick with Supergirl. What is it about the show that makes you a stalwart fan in the comments below? And if you stopped watching as we did, let us know what were some of the reasons you decided not to continue with her on the CW. And I think there's a season 4 now. Is that correct?
Season 4 or 5, because I think, eventually it's going to be ending at some point, because we know Arrow's done. Flash is probably going to end after season 7. So I think if it's not in season 5 already, I think it's season 4.
So,
be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get future updates on future videos and World of Paws podcasts.
One more brilliant thing I want to mention is how when Cat Grant was on there, she would have all these wonderful quips and crazy lines. And one of my favorites is when she made a reference to her real life husband Harrison Ford, as if she would not like meeting him or being with him, and that was absolutely hilarious. And again, this is one of the things that made season 1 stand out.
Right.
So with that, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching.
I'm Masculine Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. With her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket. Give it to you later on in the form of a